Hello and welcome to our podcast. My name is Natasha.
And my name's Lauren.
Join us as we discuss all things neighbours.
And it's unfinished business.
So hello and thank you for joining us for episode 3.
Episode 3? Are we only on episode 3?
Yeah.
I feel like we literally have so much to talk about for the last 2 weeks.
Like loads. Yeah. So I thought this week it'd be fun to do a character focus.
Yeah.
To delve a little bit more into one of the main characters on the show. Yeah. But we were going to do that on Therese, but we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the last 8 episodes that we've watched over the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
So yeah, Lauren, what's been your favourite storyline?
So, do you remember a couple of weeks ago? I think they might have been the first. No, it wasn't the first. It was last week. I was not so keen on the Vagamurray. Is it Vagamurrays? Is that their name?
Varga Murphys?
Varga Murphys. Vagamurrays. Varga Murphys. I said I wasn't too keen on the Varga Murphys to begin with, but actually, I'm a little bit more invested in this little storyline now that with JJ. And Andrew Rodwell potentially being his dad. So that's been interesting. Because obviously at the start I was like, what's this fascination with the street and why is he so interested in Sadie? What's going on? And then obviously he's done a little bit of digging and I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. Because I think I saw something on Instagram and is it Candice and I can't remember his name, the guy that plays Andrew, basically being like, oh, it was cut so short for us at the end of the last season, so it's nice that actually now we're getting to have our stories told, because I think potentially this storyline might have been something that was planned for that time. They had to put it on hold, so now they're actually getting to explore it a little bit. And I love how there's already been some tension between the two families, and it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out.
I agree. I think there's been a lot that's been said about the Therese and Toadie storyline, but I'm actually finding that pretty tedious at the moment. And I think because we don't really believe in it. So I think actually I have more of affinity with the newer characters.
Yeah.
And I would class the Rodwells in that because we didn't actually see much of them. I'm just loving it. I'm loving seeing Sadie and her relationship with Mackenzie. I'm loving JJ. I think he's super cute. Also seeing Dex struggling at school. I just love the Varga Murphys. I think they're bringing a lot, and they're really utilizing them. So yeah, I've enjoyed those ones. I think for me, the main characters, the older characters, Paul, Therese, Toadie, I just don't think we're getting much from them.
But do you think that's not an intentional thing? Do you think maybe they're just holding back a little bit because they want to shine light on these new characters, and then they'll be like, right, okay, here's the backstory to this, situation that's happened?
Maybe, but then we haven't seen the Kennedys. We saw a lot of them right at the beginning, but a month on, there's hardly anything. I'm not seeing my parents on screen. That's really weird. And
come on, we need to get those parents on the screen for Tash.
No, but and they've had a little bit of a drama, and I'm like, hold on, I want to know more about this drama and what's going on.
Yeah, it literally does feel like they had the little drama. The tension was kind of broken because obviously they had to deal with the Harold situation, and then it's kind of like, oh, it's been forgotten about now. I have to say, and I literally so many people, were talking about it on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. That scene where Jane is literally gets out those fucking Union Jacks and just goes into Therese's face actually made me laugh so much. I was like, from Mike, and I was like, oh, hello. It was so funny.
To be honest, talking about Jane and Mike, I loved that whole cute thing where he, was upset with Jane and tossed the ring into the lake. And then had to fetch it out, and he was all drenched from up to his knees. No, I think that's really sweet, but I think they're really panning it out because he's dying. Like,
well, I literally was going to say to you, he's not dead yet. Like,
no,
come on. We said in
but
our pilot episode, we were like, come on. We were literally like, Mike's gonna die. And
he's gonna
like,
die.
so far, nothing's happened. Like, something's got to happen because he's
No,
not in the main titles. He's not like a.
I
I
think,
think it's to do with his bike trip. I reckon he
yep.
has an accident on his bike
Hmm.
and yeah, is killed on his
Yeah,
bike or something.
I think he's gonna have a
Duh,
motorbike
duh, duh,
accident. Yeah,
spoiler.
I'm not sure if we're gonna see any more of him now because
No, that might be it. He might literally have just done that
literally,
like little
yeah,
stint.
yeah. So it was nice to see him do his little thing, and I thought that was really cute. And I was like, oh, I'm now warming up to Mike and Jane, and then all of a sudden they're just gonna kill him off. I mean, I'm
Yeah, well,
talking like I'm writing the show.
like
We
you're in the
we
know.
don't
You
even
know what's
know.
gonna happen.
He,
It's
he could
funny.
like have amnesia. He could be knocked off and be concussed and be in a coma. He might not actually be
And
dead.
just suddenly
Yeah, and just be
appear
there.
again,
Yeah,
later down the
yeah.
line, like
Might keep it
Farrell
open.
did, and Dee came back from the dead, and all these people that have come back from the dead, Mike's just gonna, suddenly be okay again one day and
You
appear
never
when he wants
know.
some more money.
Yeah, you never know.
Good old guy,
You never
good old Guy
know.
Pearce. We need
Yeah,
some more money. Oh, I'm just gonna come back from the dead now.
yeah.
Oh
One thing I
dear.
will say is, changing the subject, is Hazen Mackenzie. I mean,
I don't know how to feel about this.
I mean, I, I clearly she likes him, and
Yeah,
she's taken that plunge to kind of go, you know what, like I need to move on. Um, and I mean, it's typical soap opera style, isn't it? Once
mm-hmm.
someone realizes, yes, I like this person, the
Yeah,
other person's just not on the same page, and we're just going to have their timelines just be totally out of sync until it
but
gets to the point where the sexual frustration is just too much.
I was about to
Like,
say because I think deep down he does like her,
oh,
but
definitely.
it's just like, why is he not accepting and that he
Well, it's
likes
it's
her?
this it's
Like,
this thing of we live with each other. We live with
yeah,
each other. And that has been the excuse of quite a lot of characters. Well, no,
yeah,
we can't do anything with housemates,
yeah,
because it would be awkward. And
mm-hmm.
I think it has been awkward.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's just an excuse at the moment. He's just having fun. Also, yeah, did say with this girl, we're just having fun. I'm just looking for fun. I'm not looking for any. He said that to Byron, didn't he?
yeah,
Didn't
yeah,
he?
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
looking for anything serious. So, like, we don't know much about him. What was before coming to Ramsey Street? Like,
Yeah.
what was his
I know,
story
because he
there?
just obviously, that's the thing. We still need to obviously discover more about Has because obviously he just appeared
Mm-hmm.
as Mackenzie's date at the
Mm-hmm.
wedding, and it was
Mm-hmm.
somebody that had just moved to the street that actually nobody really knows about. So there's obviously clearly some sort of storyline that needs to be explored, as like you said,
Mm-hmm.
before he came onto the street and why he just wants to be casual with her.
Yeah.
Not her, sorry, with the other girl, but um, yeah, I have to
But
say, I thought, sorry, it was really sweet seeing obviously Sadie getting really upset
mm-hmm.
the fact that she'd thought all the trouble that was obviously Hendrix and her and obviously they'd forgiven her and just seeing that vulnerable side of her and sitting there with Wendy and having that conversation and being like, so then because I asked you that question, didn't I was like, how did they get to this point where now
Mm-hmm.
Mac and Sadie are now friends, but obviously we've realized that obviously she's forgiven her and they've got a friendship out of it, so I think that was really nice to see this week or last
That
week.
I just remember watching it and going, well, that's what I said. Matt
Mm,
just forgave her because she's a nice person, but
yeah,
also Sadie was just young and foolish and a bit of a follower. And we can all identify with that because we've,
yeah,
grown up in school and,
yeah.
same
Sorry, you
story.
were gonna say something before I cut you off. What were you gonna say?
Can't remember.
Oh, so yeah, talking to Sadie. So is she Abigail's nanny? Because
Yes, it
someone,
seems like it.
yeah, because someone said that on one of the online things I was reading earlier, and I was like, oh. And then I obviously watched today's episode, and she's obviously with Abigail, and I was like, oh, she obviously looks
Hmm.
after
Hmm.
Abigail.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's not doing a very good job. That's coming from someone who used to be a nanny themselves. snooping around, getting in Paul's office
Speaking of that,
already,
so I saw like a few tweets from fans on this, actually
Yeah.
saying that they don't like what Wendy is doing, and
Okay.
she's behaving like Sheila Canning,
Yeah.
and she shouldn't be behaving like Sheila Canning. And I'm
Mhm.
like, as much as yes, Sheila Canning was very like that,
Yeah.
like she was an iconic character. Like, we need people to medal. We haven't had it's only been in the last, week or so that we've had medaling
Yeah. And I
because
think that's the problem is like with Wendy, she's never really found her place, her
mm,
job. She's never really found the thing that she wants to do. So in order to do that, they need to create this kind of like, meddling situation for her then to I suppose shine a light on her and make her more of a character because like we
mhm,
said earlier, the Rodwells haven't have a chance to shine yet. So I
mhm.
think it's perfect this, thing that she's doing at the moment to give her an opportunity to explore, I think.
She's kind of a blank canvas. So the writers could do anything with her.
Yeah,
Whereas Sadie has already a bit of a backstory, Andrew has a bit of a backstory. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, she doesn't. So
no.
anything goes.
I tell you what, I'm actually really still not keen on is Reese and Byron. I just don't. Either I'm struggling to place Byron as like, because obviously his face has changed, it's not the same character, the same actor, or I just really find it weird that Misha Barton, an American actress, is in Neighbours. I don't know. I don't know if I'm confusing my actors with my characters. I don't know, something doesn't gel for me with that whole situation. I like the fact that Paul's found out and is now obviously can start meddling in the situation,
Mm,
but apart until that point, I was like, oh, this is boring. They're just
mm.
hiding a relationship kind of
Does
thing.
anyone care?
No. Yeah, because it's
That is
like
secret.
it's
Like no
done
one
because
cares.
it's been done before a million times. But
Mm,
obviously, there's clearly more to her character and her storyline with the whole
mm,
dad situation
mm.
that's going to be explored. But yeah, I'm just bored with it at the moment. That storyline. I don't know. How do you feel
Yeah,
about it?
I don't know. I mean, we've had it before where, like, I remember with Amy and Leo when they were
Yeah.
dating, and then
Oh
they
God,
found out that they
that's
were
awkward.
they were brother and sister. I'm
Orcs.
just I'm just wondering whether there's something similar going on here. Maybe not brother or sister, but maybe cousins. I don't know. There's something not quite right. Why would Reese's dad be such a secret? And why would she be keeping it from Byron? Bearing in mind that Byron has
Mm,
proven that he's pretty open-minded. You know,
yeah.
he was an escort, so he's very open-minded. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like there's anything that he couldn't get over or couldn't forgive. So why? What's going on there? So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
also with Paul in the background, I'm like, is this going to be some relation to Paul because he clearly can't help himself?
No, it's just,
So
yeah.
like a boost.
I read somewhere, and I might be wrong, that I think it might have been not a spoiler, but someone was just kind of like
Mm.
guessing that there might be a relationship between her and Leo.
I saw that. Like literally, she visited the penthouse, right? Leo and Paul was there, and I was like,
Yeah,
that that makes more sense. Like
yeah,
same age and like
yeah, yeah,
that fits more than Byron and Reese.
yeah,
But as we know, they tend to mismatch couples so that they can then fit
mm,
them together.
yeah. So
Um,
I
so
don't
it could
know.
happen.
And I'm a bit like, what is Leo doing at the moment? Like, what is Leo doing? Like he talks about the
Nothing.
vineyard, but we apart from the wedding, we haven't visited the vineyard. Like before, it was all like, getting, the vineyard up and running, and Glenn came to work with them at the vineyard, and they were making it a thing and all that kind of stuff. But now he's just like, oh, he's hanging around Paul all the time, and he's got, okay, I know he's obviously got a child now, so he's
Yeah, but
probably,
he doesn't hang out with his child. Like he never hangs out.
he gives that to
No,
Sadie.
like he literally goes, "Oh hi, oh it's nice to see you. Oh by the way, can you look after her because I'm going to the vineyard." Like
Yeah,
I understand he
but
needs to
that's
work, but I
yeah,
don't
but
see them together.
no, he's
And it
like a, but he's a single. That's the thing. He's a single dad, so you would be like, right, you should want to be spending time and be seen spending time with your daughter,
yeah, but like
surely.
show a little in the penthouse with Paul maybe in the evening with Abigail, little cute moment. I'm going to put her to
Yeah,
bed. Like it doesn't have to be that much.
I know.
Uh,
Yeah, it is crazy because it's just like it was cute though that her little character she got like a couple of lines to say the other day. I was like,
yeah,
oh, she speaks. She
yeah,
actually speaks.
yeah,
So yeah, no, she's quite cute. But I just I'm like, what is going on with Leo at the moment? Like he's just
yeah. This is what I mean. Like it just feels as though the airtime is being given to the newer characters, and we're not really. It's like
mm,
the main storylines aren't actually the main characters. The main storylines are the newer characters with
but I
peripheral storylines
but I
going
think
on.
the thing that we've been left on now, the cliffhanger of Toady finding the note in the pig that Nell sent to Mel, I think that's going to delve now into the storyline of why Mel left. Because obviously
Mm,
he knows the reason, and he's obviously not told Nell or Hugo the real reason. And I think that's obviously now going to come out. So that might then now lead us into a bit of a backstory as to why now Toady and Therese got together. It's just, I think we're so eager as fans to to know what's happened after this, the last 2 years or whatever.
mm,
And it's just, I feel like it's just taking a long time to get to that point, and we're just being very, very impatient, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what I will say is that scene with Nell and just crying her eyes out. Like
Mm,
I'm thinking this is something that Scarlett couldn't have done.
no.
So I feel like this is definitely the right choice.
Yeah.
So as much as I love Scarlett,
Yeah, I like I said, I think I said last week, I really wasn't gelling with this new
mm,
character. But since I've now seen this week's episodes and I'm like, oh, actually, okay, it's going somewhere, I can
mm,
kind of like, I'm slowly, like you said, as much as I loved Scarlett playing, obviously now, I'm now starting to warm up to this new,
mm,
new character, new now. So I suppose we'll
yeah,
see where it goes.
yeah. But I just, I don't know, no, like seeing Therese saying she's like lying on the sofa with Toady. I
Mm.
mean, I don't know why I need to see her feet. No offense. Like you might,
Honestly, how many
Rebecca,
times does she get her fucking feet out for him
Rebecca,
to
you might
fucking
have lovely
massage?
feet, but I don't need to see your feet, love. I don't need to see your feet.
No,
Um,
I think it's like
um,
every other episode that they're in, she's
it's
fucking
like they're
massaging
trying
her
to
feet.
force.
Why
They're
am I
trying.
swearing so much? Sorry.
You're allowed to swear. Oh God, get used to it. um, no, it just feels like they're forcing the intimacy. They're trying to push it into our faces that these two are like tight.
We
You
do
know
love each other. We really
exactly.
do.
Look, even with my feet, on display. No.
There must
Also,
be some people out there that fucking can't stand feet. They're probably vomiting at home watching
well,
these
I'm
scenes.
literally like I can't stand feet. Like so, I don't need to see your feet. Like no. Um, yeah, no. And then it was it was the whole because the whole secret came in. She was like, why didn't you tell me? And she said, we were friends at before, like at first, we're friends first, so you
Yeah,
should have been able to tell me. And I'm
yeah.
just thinking, yeah, and that's where it should have stayed. Like
Mm. I
it's
feel
just
like I've missed an episode. You're saying stuff, and I'm like, have I not
yeah.
watched an
So
episode?
I think you might have missed the last one because we already know the reason about
Oh,
Mel. Yeah. So
oh,
yeah,
I've missed an
yeah,
episode. I've still got one
yeah.
left to go. How have I missed an episode?
Well,
Okay,
Freebie was skipped about one or two of my episodes.
okay,
I actually had to go back, so it might be that it's done that.
okay.
Um,
So
but yeah,
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to watch.
yeah,
Sorry, guys. There's me waffling on and pretending like I didn't know, and you're there like, hang on a minute, we know
yeah.
this.
I'm sure. The thing is, my brain's not that great, because I tend to do other stuff whilst I'm watching. So I was like, am I getting
I'll
this
be
right?
able. So the next time we do a podcast, I'll be able to, be able to actually talk about this situation properly because I would have been
I
able to
mean,
watch the
it's
episode.
not really much what
Different.
happened.
Okay.
Um, but as we know, we still haven't seen Mel.
Mm.
So
It's so weird. Everyone's like, "Where is Mel?"
yeah,
Like she was announced as being a
yeah,
cast member that was coming back,
yeah,
so she's gonna have to come back at some point,
yeah.
surely.
I mean,
Paul and
I,
Therese are gonna end up getting back together. I don't,
definitely.
oh, Mel and Toadie. Don't know. I just like how many times, like we'll get into it talking about Therese, but how many times is her and Paul like I know we're all like they need to be together, but so many times, man.
Well, they spent more time apart than they
True,
had together. But then
true.
saying that, sorry to bring up my main man, Mark Brennan. Um, but
You
when
could, can I just say, you can bring him up anytime you like.
I know, I was just being polite. Um, no, but Mark Brennan, like we were obsessed with him and Paige,
Hmm.
and we, from what we remembered, that this whole massive love story. But actually, when you rewatch it back, the first time they got together, it was so short. He was actually longer with Ellie than Paige.
Yeah.
So
But they ended up together in the
no,
end and they're
but this,
married.
but this
I
is what
know
I
what you're
mean by the
saying. I know,
pace of
I know, I
relationships. So
know.
it's kind of like, they keep them apart because it's the tension, it's the
Mm.
conflict, it's what,
And
we're wanting it to
yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah, that's what draws people in. Because it's once they're
Exactly.
together, you're like, oh, what's going to happen now?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Anybody else we've missed? What else has happened? I've obviously missed an episode, so I
Yeah.
can't speak any shit, can I?
Well, did you see Dex at school?
No, when you said that earlier, you were
Yeah.
like troubles at school.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, have
So
I missed?
so basic.
That was the first time I thought, hang on a minute, I've missed something here.
Well, the thing is, he's basically bullying starting to happen at school. So I was very much like, in the climate that we have today, where you shouldn't really be saying anything about anyone in terms of judgments. What can
Yeah.
you know? So they're basically, he's taking the piss out of them for having two mums. So he's getting a little bit bullied there, and it was
Okay.
a cute moment where JJ was like, "Well, if he was the same age as me, then I would definitely do
Do
something." And
That's what I
then
was
one
going
of
to
them was
ask
like, "No,
you.
no, no, no violence."
Do we even actually know the ages of the boys?
No,
Because
no.
like, so what? How old are we saying Nell is?
I
12.
don't know, like 12, 13, maybe. Yeah,
And JJ and Dex. I think Dex is younger than JJ, isn't
yeah,
he?
yeah,
So and
yeah.
now Dex in the same year.
No,
JJ's
no,
older.
no. So I think Dex is probably about 15,
Okay.
whereas maybe JJ's about, well, 14, 15, and JJ's about, I'd say, yeah, 16, maybe.
Okay, maybe we'll find out. Yeah, because I was there going, oh, they're going to school. I wonder when we're actually going to get to see scenes at Erinsborough High because they talk
Mhm,
about it, but we
mhm,
haven't
mhm,
actually seen
mhm,
anyone go to school. Like
mhm.
back in the day, we're talking,
Oh,
2012 up to like whatever. They were constantly at Erinsborough High doing
yeah,
like
yeah,
talk. There's like not enough
yeah,
teenagers in this
yeah.
series currently that are doing stuff to do with the
But
school. So.
but even in the last 5 years of Neighbours, I would say they just didn't have enough. Like even when it was like Ben and Xanthi, it was like,
Mm,
is that the only kids you got in the school? Like,
Yeah, then they had to create a second fire that Hendrix would end up ultimately dying from. But
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah,
So yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway, do your
we
homework.
done? Okay, I will. I will go and watch. I'm just sat here like, yeah, like agreeing with you, and then be like in my head thinking, I don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
Oh dear.
Wow, that was a busy, busy 2 weeks of storylines, but clearly some I haven't watched yet, but we won't talk about that. But right now, let's dive into our character focus and talk about Therese. So, right, so like starting from the beginning, I suppose.
Yeah.
So the first thing, so I've done like a little bit of research going backwards because obviously I'm actually still watching some of the earlier episodes. I
Mm.
know you've like finished them. So some of the stuff here is still like fresh for me, so I can still kind of remember it a little bit. Um, but yeah, so the first thing is I wanted to talk about is her relationship with Paul is
Hmm.
literally starts from the offset because she makes a power play with him because she actually knows that she's got the job at Lassiter's, but doesn't tell him, and obviously allows Paul to still interview her for the job at the start. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, already she's kind of got the upper hand and being like, right, I'm boss kind of thing.
And that's not
Um,
something I realized. Like I thought that the the conflict happened as she was manager and it came out from them
I mean,
working together.
inevitably it does,
It does, but I
but
didn't realize
obviously,
that it
yeah,
was that.
yeah. The first thing that she does is obviously she plays him and is like, actually, I have already got the job, but I'm just gonna let you interview me just to, so I can kind of like read you and see, if I actually like your character kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then shortly after that, I think which we see after she's done that whole thing with Paul, she actually obviously arrives on the street along with Brad, Josh, and Imogen. And then obviously in turn, also at some point learns that Brad's ex also lives on the street, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, I loved all of this drama. I love Kit Gamblin, who plays
Hmm.
Brad. I love him to pieces because he used to be in Home and Away. So I watched
Yeah.
him in there. So yeah, I was really happy about that. Doesn't surprise me that because he's pretty fit, that he yeah has a bit of
I mean,
you
you
know
think he is,
different. I think he
personally.
is. He is. He's like surfer dude fit, like definitely. Um, but yeah, no, I could see him being not a womanizer, but being a hit with the ladies.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I just love that whole storyline. And
I mean, it's quite
that
long-winded.
that dragged on.
I know. Like you'll see, like this research that I've done on Therese, like this storyline. I mean, we're not going to go into great depths because obviously we'd be here for forever, but like, yeah, it goes on for a long time. But obviously there's that initial kind of like, oh, do I trust him? Do I trust this woman knowing that this is my ex? And I think initially, actually, she's like, actually, no, I'm Therese Willis. I'm not threatened by you.
Yeah, really cool.
Um, but then you start to see the kind of relationship between her and Paul. There starts
Hmm.
being that like conflict, which I think obviously then in turn, as we'll find later on, is what happens. The
Hmm.
relationship breaks it down. But obviously, so the first thing, the real conflict between Paul and Therese is that he sets Therese up with paid parking and
Oh yeah.
she fights back by increasing the maintenance rates at the hotel.
Yeah,
So obviously
that
there's that little like war
suffers.
between the
Yeah,
two of them. That's the first kind of like
yeah.
real thing. And obviously their relationship starts to kind of deteriorate from that point on. And then obviously inevitably she then quits her job at
Hmm.
Lassiter's.
Hmm. Hmm.
But Lucy obviously encourages Paul to rehire her back because, you can't really have Lassiter's without Therese because she's doing such a stellar job. Next thing that we see happens with Therese is so this is where tension starts to build again with the whole Brad uh so sorry, Lauren is married to Matt. Obviously, Brad is married to Therese, and you see the tension between the two families when Josh has his accident falling off the cliff. after abseiling, and Mason
Mhm.
gets the
Mhm.
blame for
Mhm.
not doing the buckle right. So
Mhm.
then Brad tries to sue Mason over this accident, which obviously then starts to be the kind of the tension between the two families. And then Lauren and Brad find out that they've actually got a child, or sorry, I think Lauren obviously knew that she had a child with Brad.
Mhm.
Obviously, they find out that
They didn't know who
Brad
it
finds
was.
out, yeah, Brad finds out they've got a child together. Therese sticks with Brad because, um, we unfortunately have the whole Doug comes into the situation with his Alzheimer's, so
Yeah.
they've got the care of him, which is such a like was a really good storyline and something that you saw like a vulnerable side to Therese, um, which I think was not really nice because she's
But
being like really like hard, really like, in your face, and then it's kind of like, oh, hang on a minute. Actually, there's a family situation going on.
well, it's just shows her kindness at how
Mm,
she almost felt like Doug was her dad in
yeah.
a way, not like father-in-law. I mean, I think at one point during all of that, I think Doug was actually living there,
Yeah, he did.
and Brad had moved out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually because obviously familiarity is really good with people with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So and she was just so lovely during that, so soft, so tender, for someone who's not even your actual blood.
No.
Um, so yeah, it was nice to see that.
And then obviously tension with Brad and Lauren, obviously when they're looking for Paige, and inevitably the kiss that we know about that obviously Therese doesn't find out until later, but
Hmm.
you're like, oh, okay, so there's gonna be this is gonna come out at some
Something,
point, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
And then you get Therese's brother and you throw him in the mix,
Oh
so
my
Mr.
God.
Nick.
Oh my God. Like that whole storyline was so frustrating, and I've never felt so sad for Paul. I think that's probably the like I pitiest him the most then. Like my
Hmm.
pity was like strong. Um, yeah, and I think that's where Therese started to be a bit like softer towards him as well. So I mean, at the
She
end of the day, if that didn't happen, then would that have yeah, it would have
so
just been
obviously
this back and forth.
obviously Paul
Yeah,
thinks he's dying of leukemia, and you get Therese being, his rock, I suppose, and being his
yeah,
support.
yeah.
And then um it just kind of like spirals. She finds out that, um Brad and Lauren have actually slept together. Her drinking gets out of control. Obviously, the marriage then comes to an end, and then Paul actually ends up moving into the house with
Yeah,
Therese.
yeah.
And this is where you get that first real kind of thing. Oh, okay, something's gonna like happen here. It's that first,
Hmm.
even though you've seen the back and forth between them, the love-hate relationship
Yeah.
that we all love to watch every week. This is the first time that
Hmm.
you're kind of like, oh, okay, something could develop here. But uh, the reason Paul's moved in because he has actually lost ownership
Hmm.
of Lassiter's to Julie Quill, which is obviously the horrible Julie
Yeah.
Quill, who is
Yeah.
the reason for, of course, the explosion and
Hmm.
Josh and Doug both dying. So obviously you've got you thinking, oh, hang on a minute, Paul and Therese are going to get together, but then it's like, oh, actually, no, hang on a minute.
No.
We think Paul's done this. We think Paul's the reason for this explosion. We think he's tampered with the boiler. Um, Obviously, we find out he hasn't. But obviously, Therese then actually commits perjury. She gets that I can't remember her name. She gets that woman that was working with Paul to lie in court.
Hmm.
But obviously, because of her drinking, Therese, and her vulnerable state, she then is drinking in court and actually admits in court to the fact that she bribed her. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so obviously she gets in trouble, and uh, drinking becomes worse. She collapses. She's found collapsed by Piper. So actually Piper's come into the scene at this point. She's van's collapsed in the kitchen, I think it is. They can't get in the door, can they? Lauren has to help her,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously then goes off to some sort of retreat to get better and
Yeah.
to not be kind of drinking anymore. In the meantime, whilst Therese is away, Piper gets together with Tyler. And then
Yeah.
you've got a very, I know you talk about this quite a lot, and I've heard you talk about it. Therese's disapproval of Piper and Tyler. Like, it's a strong, very strong reaction. And you've spoken about it before. You said a few times, like,
No, I'm just thinking, like, Mason wasn't a great guy, and yet
mm,
she was okay with, Imogen. It's like Piper was the baby, and therefore, like, that just couldn't happen.
yeah,
And I think up until that point, I don't think Tyler had done anything like really bad.
mm.
Um, so like, he's just a bit of an effed up teen, just well, young person, young adult, and just needs someone to put him on the straight and narrow.
I think you've said it there. Literally, what you were saying is like she basically let Imogen get away with
Yeah.
stuff, which is why they never didn't pick up on the fact that she was having an eating disorder and all these other
Yep.
things
Yep.
that she's
Yep.
done, because they were so concentrated on Piper being away in Canada on this exchange and
And Josh.
Josh's
Yeah.
swimming championship.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Mm,
Piper kind of got Imogen kind of got, like, pushed to the sidelines.
hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, the next 2 points actually I'm going to speak about is something actually that I'm just currently watching at the moment. So I'm at the end of 2018. So Therese and Gary get together at some point in 2018, and quite likes Therese and Gary's relationship.
Yeah. Hmm. Me
Um,
too.
and obviously she then realizes that she has breast cancer, and she obviously clearly starts to lean on Paul a little bit more with this, because obviously he's been through the same thing, even though his
Fake
obviously wasn't.
cancer.
Yeah, his was fake.
Mm.
And then obviously Gary realizes that actually no, you, regardless of, because they break up at some point and then obviously then
Hmm.
get back together. This is after she's obviously had an affair with Paul. She slept with Paul on the couch, I think it is, in the office, and she's like, Paige, get this couch out of, I can't like
Yeah.
have this
Yeah.
in here. And then they realise this is the couch. Um, she has this affair, and then obviously it comes out at the wedding, and the wedding doesn't happen. But ultimately they get back together. But I think then Gary's like, well, actually, no, we wanted to give this a second go. He's like, but you're always going to go back to Paul, and I just cannot deal with this go between you and Paul all the time. Like, I need out. So, but yeah, which is quite sad because I actually really quite liked Therese and
Hmm.
Gary together. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
agree.
And then we're moving on to stuff that I'm currently watching is her and Leo's relationship. So I'm like, how many fucking guys does she want to be? She want to be with?
That
Like,
that is something also, because I know that with Piper it was the age and the fact that she's at school, but the age gap, what
mm,
the fuck?
I know.
Also, it's the guy that you've been with, their son. Like, it's just, I mean, I know it's so planned, I know, but it's totally wrong. That
It's
never
like
should have happened.
I feel like there was an episode recently where there was literally Paul, Leo, and her in like the same scene recently, an episode, and I was like looking at her and I was like, hang on a minute, you're laughing and joking now with your new husband Cody, but yet you're here laughing with someone that you were married to and you've clearly had sex with, and his son, which you've also had sex with. Like, how are you okay? Like, I've never been in a relationship, broken up with someone and being okay with them. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's just, I mean, the thing is, they hope that fans forget about it, right? Of course, fans still remember stuff,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like, oh yeah, we're supposed to just, gloss over it. It's fine. Like, it's so incestuous, and I just can't. I can't.
So when I was doing this research earlier, obviously I'm clearly watching stuff and I'm reading this and I'm like, shit, I forgot this stuff happened.
Yeah.
So Leo gets in a relationship with a lady called Delaney. and she's bad news. And Therese ends up getting shot and end up in hospital, shot in the shoulder. It's meant to be for Leo, but Therese gets ends up getting shot in it.
Oh.
So
Mm.
she ends up in hospital, and Paul goes in to see her. And this is when Paul and Therese kiss. She says, "I still got feelings for you," etc. So they get back together again, and then eventually become engaged. And then this big storyline comes out with all the wives come out of the woodworks, say Rebecca, Lynn, reasons why Gail shouldn't marry Paul, some sort of like the ghosts of Paul's past,
Yes.
all come back,
Ex-wife.
yeah, to kind of like try and stop her from marrying him. But obviously she ignores it, and they get married. And I think later on, so this guy called Jesse Porter, this is actually
Mm-hmm.
Julie Quill's son, and we don't realise it's Julie Quill's son because Shay has obviously sent him to spy on Therese. And unfortunately, Therese gets a little bit attached to him as she finds out his birthday is actually the same day as Josh's birthday. And she gets a bit attached. There's a big whole debacle about him going into the prison, which he doesn't actually show up for. So she ends up having a one-to-one conversation with Julie in prison, and I think ultimately says, "Look, well, I don't know, does she say I forgive you? Not forgive you for obviously the explosion, but
Yeah.
let bygones be bygones, let's move on." And
Mm-hmm.
then obviously she's wanting to buy into the Quill group, I think. But she realizes that Paul was actually she finds out that Paul has paid or David to get Jesse out of the picture. And the reason that she can't invest in the Quill Group is because the money she was going to invest is actually what Paul has used to pay Nicolette off for see you later, get gone, you've screwed up my boy's life with
I
the
love the
babies and stuff
storyline.
like that.
I loved it. It was just shock the fact that Paul could actually pay off someone just to get a kid.
So obviously Therese finds all this stuff out. She also finds out that he's paid off Holden Bryce, who's has to give a fake testimony to about Harlow's boyfriend. Is it Brent, I think?
Yeah.
So basically Paul is causing lots of shit in Therese's life, and she's like, enough is enough. Like, this is too much. And obviously they end up separating. She ends up relapsing and is found on the beach by dun, 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 Paul's brother. But obviously at the time we don't realise it's Paul's brother, so Glenn. Then Paul fakes being seriously ill. So then they reconcile. So she's like, "Oh no, Paul, can't believe you're ill." And they are going to renew their vows. But then Paul's lies are all exposed, and obviously this doesn't happen. So yeah. And then Therese um ends up dating Glenn. So she ends up in a relationship with Glenn, and that's a whole different storyline with all like the
Yeah.
Kiri situation and stuff. Like, that was long-winded. Yeah, and obviously Paul's so pissed off the fact that she's in a relationship with his brother, that he tries to set her up with the whole fashion show and Montana situation, knowing full well that it's going to go tits up, and inevitably Therese ends up getting fired from Lassiter's. And Paige comes back onto the scene. We love having Paige back.
Yeah.
And queries Glenn Therese's relationship. And eventually, dun dun dun, at the last episode, or potentially I think episode before, she ends up kissing Paul again, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
end of
Yeah.
Neighbours.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2 years later. Paul has jilted Therese at the altar, and she's now with Toadie. So I'm like, where are we? Where are we going after this? This
I
kiss
mean,
with Paul.
I don't understand why Paul would jilt her. Like,
We're still to explore that. I think
I
I still think
know, but
there's to come.
it's just he's a serial monogamer. So like he likes getting married. So I just don't understand what growth has happened for him to actually turn around and say, no, I don't want to marry you.
Uh-huh.
Like we're toxic, like we shouldn't belong together, which is, I'm assuming, what he thinks.
Yeah.
Because he was going through therapy on and off, and they were doing couple therapy, I think, at one point. So I wonder whether there's something in that. But yeah, I guess we shall see. Yeah, no, really good storylines. I think from the word go, she's been someone that we all could go, yeah, she's a badass woman, you know,
Mm-hmm.
she's a boss. You know, and I mean, who can put Paul in their place apart from Sheila Canning?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think there's quite a lot that we've spoken
there
about
is.
Trace. We
Indeed,
could have
there
gone
is.
on, and we could have embellished, and we could have like dug a little deeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really helpful to like remind ourselves of actually she's one of the main characters at the moment, especially with the Toadie to Ray storyline.
Mm,
So it's good to get a recap on her journey
yeah.
on Neighbours.
Yeah. If there's any characters that you guys want to hear us talk about, then please do let us know via our social media platforms.
Right, I think that's all we've got time for today. We've literally, yeah, we've dug deep today. It's a long one, isn't it?
I mean, this might be an hour-long episode, guys, but who's going to
Yeah.
complain?
But yeah, we are super excited to be meeting Colette this weekend,
Woohoo!
down at Drop Project.
Yeah,
Can't wait for that. So yeah, we'll tell you about it next time we meet you guys.
we
So
will.
yeah,
So thank you for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
bye.